real estate agents not only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.
Welcome to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. Brand new show this week. All kind of great stuff going on. And the market has been hot close last month. We'll talk about, we mentioned briefly in last week's show, but last month's numbers are in, and they're huge. It's the second highest month in 20 months. Just last month numbers came in. And so that's very, very interesting, coming off of a great January, February in terms of interest rates. We all know we're in a very interest rate driven marketplace right now in terms of real estate. And so going back, huge numbers. I think it was 523 sales last month. It happened one single time last year. That was in June. And then the last time that happened previously was September 2022. And so huge. So 19 months and 3 weeks ago, actually. So right at 20 months, huge news there. We will talk about, though, interest rates have crept back up here recently. We had great news this week that we'll talk about. We have basically best rates in a month that we just had. So we'll talk about what's going on, anything and everything real estate related. We'll talk about the number one reason that homes are not selling right now, as this market has slowed down a little bit, historically for the past really 4, 5, 6, 7 months. And really late 2023. We talked about in previous shows that 2023 was the slowest amount of home sales since the early 1990s. And so ideally, right, what we're seeing is about 50%, close to 50% of the homes just aren't selling. They're sitting there for longer. They're expiring after 6 months, whatever it is. We'll talk about the number one reason why we see that is, and that's based on data. We'll break down that exact data for you on today's show, which is super, super interesting. We'll talk about some amazing success stories. Our team's been absolutely crushing it in terms of just the spring market. We're in that spring to summer market right now. It's full force. Everyone who's been stalking properties for 6, 8, 12 months up north is now coming in town and buying stuff. And we'll talk about that as well, and do the same thing we do every week here for the past 14 plus years. We just want to give you great information, keep you up to date on anything and everything related here in real estate, the Myrtle Beach, Grand Strand area, and just hope that you make better decisions with your largest assets. For most people, their real estate is one or the largest asset that they own. And a lot of times they'll spend 20, 30 years building hard equity, but only 15, 20 minutes when it comes down to making decisions and how they handle that equity. And so we just want to provide value like we always do. If you ever want to come back and listen or watch these shows, we stream them in terms of podcasts. Type in Myrtle Beach Real Estate Radio with Blake Sloan, your favorite podcast platform like Spotify, Apple, whatever it is. You can also, we stream these on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Just go to YouTube, type in Blake Sloan Radio, and share them with anybody you come across. And just overall, lots of great stuff we'll talk about here on today's show.
All right, a lot of stuff to get to. If you just tuned in for the very first time and you're not sure who you're listening to or what you're listening to, it's the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show, hosted by, of course, Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan has been called the Real Estate Whiz Kid. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, Wall Street Journal, Realtor magazine, and other national publications. You may be seeing him on TV with NBC and also with Fox and Friends with Morning Show. You heard the personal endorsements here by Sean Hannity, also Barbara Corcoran, Gary LeVox. Put them all together, it's just totally unprecedented. Now, that's one thing, but the other thing is that Blake has trademark systems for both home sellers and home buyers. They are trademarked, so we can't give you all the details, but more than happy every week to tell you the most important part of that system.
Yes, and that's the whole reason I do this show. Like I mentioned, I made a promise a few years back, just after horror story, that I was like, look, we'll talk about this every single week because it's all that matters, right? And all that matters when it comes to real estate. Everyone makes so many mistakes, and by far the biggest mistake they make is this mistake of thinking that all the real estate agents are the same, and it could not be any further from the truth, right? Just like any doctor, any lawyer, I talk about this every week, but it's still, people hear this and they just make the same mistake, just like any radio morning show host and just anything, right? It's saying they're all the same because what's common is that they're all people, right? Just like if you go to a restaurant, you go to a favorite restaurant, sometimes you have an amazing experience, but sometimes you have a different waiter, waitress, and you have a terrible experience, right? It all comes down to that person and how they actually execute. And so what most people don't realize is the single most important variable that determines your success or failure as a home seller comes into one thing only, and that thing is the agent that you choose, period. That's it, right? Not your wall color, not your paint quality, not your grass quality. It comes down to the agent you choose, and specifically, how does that agent actually execute when it comes down to getting the property? So most people think that like all realtors do are just take some photos, put it online, right? And that's just two of the 100 plus, it's actually 118 different variables from A to Z. If each one of those are handled correctly, it puts money in your pocket, property gets sold, anything's handled incorrectly, right? They drop the ball at any point. that cost you your hard equity. I'm seeing this more and more and more, right? As technologies come around, sites like Zillow, like, oh, I'm just going to go find this any agent, the cheapest agent, whatever it is, and they're just going to list it. And what happens is, okay, let's say that best case scenario, it looks good online. They just drop the ball on every single point. Buyers are reaching out to them, trying to buy it. They don't answer the phone or call them back, right? People are calling for sale sign. People don't call them back. It's just, you see this over and over. Negotiation time comes, the agent sells 4 houses a year. They're desperate, trying to pay next month's mortgage payment. They throw you under the bus in 2 seconds, cost you $25,000 of your hard equity just to get a deal done so they can pay their payment for next month. Like, you see this every day. And so the reality is, it's simply impossible for one single agent to accurately handle all those 118 different variables really with precision and do it accurately. And so what we have is one single agent trying to juggle all the balls. And all they really do, like I mentioned in the past, they just the 3 Ps. They promise you the world to get listing, especially right now when the market's been down historically, right? It's come down 2023, been down 2024 compared to historically years before. And there's a lot of desperate agents that'll tell you anything and everything to get that listing. And the second thing they do is they just put it to MLS. And then 3, they pray that someone else brings a buyer. They don't actually bring a buyer to it. They're just getting it, putting half the commission out there, hoping it works out. And what you end up doing is dropping price over and over and over, especially if there's no marketing to get it differentiated. That costs you your very, very hard-earned equity. And so we talked about that. What I did, I was like, look, there's got to be a better way. When I got in the business, I would just grow up in the business, mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandpa, grandma. They did great. I don't remember exactly how they did it. I was young then, but when I got in the business in 2005 in January, I was like, man, okay, this is how it works here. And I'll just see everything. There's 200 plus of us at this big box brokerage. It's Coldwell Banker at the time. And I was like, this is just interesting. We all do the same thing. We all work on this umbrella, but none of us actually work together. They actually despise me doing good. And there was just no alignment, no processes, no systems. It was all every person, for themselves. And that was dog eat dog. And it was interesting because you got to be one person doing all these things. And as technologies come around, there's a lot more things that have to be done. It's simply impossible for one single person to work with buyers, to work with sellers, to the marketing, to the administration, to the paperwork, to the closing coordination, right? And what happens is the business model is broken where you have one single agent juggling all these balls. And what happens is they drop the ball of service the most. And so they have good intentions to help you out. But the problem is there's just not enough time of the day for them to do so if they're going to survive. And the average agent in our marketplace, our MLS, sells 4 homes a year. That's 1 per quarter. That's not a whole lot of money to really invest in marketing to do anything. And so I was like, man, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I looked and studied what people did outside of real estate, hired multiple coaches, consultants, both in real estate, also outside of real estate, said, look, how do we take this and operate like a true business? Look at what people do in traditional service-based businesses like AC or, like I say, air conditioning or plumbing or whatever it is, where you have real businesses, real employees, people do the right things. You have, if I go to a doctor's office, I don't just walk in and just see the doctor at the front desk. And if I did, I wouldn't think very highly of that doctor, right? You want to make sure you have someone who's a specialist. And so what we do is I flip the old school business model upside down and said, all right, how do we have a team of specialists versus one single person who's a generalist? And when I say that generalist, when you have one agent who's juggling all the balls, that's like having the same person at McDonald's do the front register, the drive-thru, and French fries at the same time. It's very, very, very inefficient, which is why those balls get dropped so many times and why a lot of people leave their hard-earned equity on the table. And so we saw it out and said, okay, how do we take this and flip it upside down? And that's what got us featured in Forbes, Wall Street Journal. And I was like, how do we get this system that's proven, repeatable, and I can have people who manage all the variables, who specialize in those specific variables every single time so they can be really, really good at it. And that's exactly what we did. I designed this thing called the Guaranteed Sold System, the only proven system that sells twice as fast and for up to 200%, 21% more money than traditional methods. And it works very, very, very well. On the flip side, there's 100 plus variables for buyers out there. If each one's handled correctly, right, it puts money in your pocket. Right, when you buy it, you get a good deal and you get the property you want. If anything's handled incorrectly, you tend to overpay, or you buy the wrong property, or you miss out on the right one. There's so many things that really matter and that get mismanaged the most. And so I designed a process for that called the Unfair Advantage Home Buying System. Gives priority access to foreclosures, distress sales, desperate sellers, the absolute best negotiation and purchase price, as well as the home inspection to get to that closing table successfully. And so that's the one thing I want to share is like, look, if you take anything from the show, agents are not the same. People are not the same. Anyone in a service-based business is totally different. You want someone who's committed to excellence, who has a great track record, who's a true expert in the marketplace, because we're not just buying a Best Buy TV here. You're talking about your largest asset or one of your largest assets, if it's your personal or investment properties. You want to make sure that it's handled. And what you're talking about, numbers that are so big, a 2%, a 3%, 4% or 5% adjustment in price or negotiation makes such a massive difference. I watch people all the time step over dollars, pick up nickels is what we call it, because they go the cheapest person, they go with the most terrible person, because they think everyone's the same. What happens is, yeah, they save a little money in the front end, but they drop 40, 50, 60, in some cases $80,000 in the back end because the things aren't handled correctly and they left so much money on the table. And so if you take anything from this, at least explore, learn to ask the right questions. I find that almost 100% of the time, consumers don't know what questions to even ask, right? And the questions they do ask are the wrong questions. They ask things like, what do you charge? Versus they don't even ask what you do. They'll call an office and say, what do you charge? Well, it depends on what you want. We can buy it right now, don't charge anything. Or we can do a full retail, program plan with virtual reality. All these things depends on what you want, but like they're not even asking the right questions, right? They don't ask, wait, what do you do? What do you do to get my home sold? How do I get the most amount of money? How do I sell it the fastest? Like there's so many different things based on strategy, and you got to make sure you're asking yourself the right question to be able to get the right outcome. And so many home sellers don't do that. And so I just want to share that in every single week show, because that's what matters more than anything else. And you also need someone who can help you understand the data out there. Yeah, you can access the data online, but you really need somebody who lives in it. Most realtors don't even know the data that well or how to really understand it in a way to articulate it. So you need to make sure that you're using that data to make good decisions. So if you want to know more how it works, reach out, call us. We're going to help serve you with a number of real estate team in Myrtle Beach for a reason. Top 60 in North America for a reason. My number is 843-808-SOLD or BlakeSloan.com. Anytime. I'll take a quick break right back here in a second.
That directly impact your family's future. Hey, your friend Sean Hannity here, and the same is true for your real estate transactions. Now, when you sell your home, you need to speak to one of the agents right here in town that will get you the most money with the least hassle. I'm talking about Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. Now, knowing the facts when you vote and when you sell your home is always important. That's why you should check out the value of your home in today's market. When you know the accurate value, you are better equipped to make an informed decision with all the options laid out for you. Options like an instant offer, or lay out your timeline and take advantage of their guaranteed sale program, or just put it on the market and get more money than you expected. Just go to the website, find out your home's value in seconds. Call Blake Sloan today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or online at BlakeSloan.com. That's BlakeSloan.com. And get your home's real value in today's market in just seconds, and then you can start packing.
Hi, I'm Barbara Barber. I'm excited to connect with Blake Sloan, the only real estate agent in Myrtle Beach that I recommend. We offer several options to home sellers, which really takes away the stress.
That's right. For sellers in a time crunch, we can agree to sell it by a certain date, they can capture it home, or even rent it.
That's great. And if the seller has a bit more time,
Use our proven marketing plan to sell it at a high price.
work with my friend Blake Sloan and get your home sold on your terms.
Welcome back to the Blake Sloan Radio Show. Market update, all kind of great stuff. Really quick, that was Barbara Corcoran on that last commercial there. And I get this question all the time. Hey, does you ever, is that real? Does he actually do that? Yes, actually in New York City 3 weeks ago. We had a business meeting up there. Was able to see her, who she's still wild as anything and just full of energy, everything. But she actually just posted on my Facebook 3 days ago. I'll read it for you guys, John. Hey, Blake, it was so great seeing you last week in NYC. What an incredible event. I'm so with how you are always busy attending conferences, learning, sharing fresh innovations with your team. Your determination, the success for your team and clients is remarkable. Keep it up, which is super, super cool. So we do have a great relationship with Barbara. Very, very honored and glad to be in business with her. And she's amazing, right? On Shark Tank, all kind of great stuff. She was dropping some business knowledge to us about her investment properties and things like that. She sold her company for $66 million and has done TV deals, and still, even with all that money does not even supersede how much he's made through investing in New York City, which is super cool and great story. So back to the market update. The market's been unbelievable last month that we have, and there's two types of numbers what really matters. So we just finished last month, right? Right now we're in May. So April's numbers were just finalized at the end of last month. And so you got to remember, if it closed in April, how is it so hot in April? Well, the reason it's so hot in April in closed deals, because if you remember, rates dropped down dramatically like the last week of December, and they were really, really good for like January, February, early March. And they started creeping back up. If you remember, then it got recently, about a month ago, to like 7.5. It jumped up significantly. A lot of buyers put their foot on the brakes. And so we may see it dip here last month. If you look at, though, last month's numbers that we talked about for single family resale homes, there was 522 homes sold for a 20.8% increase versus April of last year, which is awesome. The only time that that's been beat in the last 20 months was June of last year, where there's 525. And so right there with it, which is awesome. So really the second hottest month in 20 months, which is amazing. Again, that comes off a run. So why is that? Why would you see a huge increase in April if rates started getting really low in January, February? Because that's when things really picked up. Remember, everyone has holiday brain December. They really kind of get back on the horse about mid-January. We started ramping up like crazy. And what happened was those deals will go to what we call pending. And so they take 30, 60, sometimes, 90 days to close. And so what's happening is they started really getting put into the pipeline. They go through the entire process of financing, underwriting, appraisals, inspections, all that stuff. And so what's happening, you finally saw those start to close. And so it was a very, very good month. If you watch since December, the market's really been on fire. If you go back December 2023, there's only 301 single family home sales that closed in the entire MLS for that month. Then in January, it went up to 316. So from 301 to 316, February 346, March 412, April 522. So significant increase there month over month as well. 20.8% increase over the same month last year, which is awesome. So we'll get to those numbers in a second. Really quick, I'll look at, and those numbers there are what we call the rearview mirror numbers, right? That's what closed last month. And for that to close last month, it went under contract usually 2 months prior to that. And so the real-time numbers you look at, I track those every single day. It's still super hot, which is good. It's still a super seller's market and what's happening. Last week's show, there were 606 properties that went under contract in a 7-day period for $235 million. This week, right now, 566 properties for $218 million, $257,000, which is great. Anytime we're over 200 million, we're smoking hot. I'll take it. I'm happy with the marketplace, which is good. And that in the last 7 days, there have been 16 properties over $1 million that went under contract, which is awesome. Overall, just kind of all over the place. Obviously, we always see a lot in Myrtle's Inlet area. Walkmall Drive under contract, $3.49 million. Pulleys Island, Atlantic Avenue, $3.26 million. One on Cliffwood right here in Myrtle Beach, kind of hidden away, $2.4 million. Norris Drive in Pulleys Island, Litchfield area, $2.2 million. One in Grand Dunes, $2.1 million. And there's lots of North Myrtle Beach, $1.8. So lots of big stuff coming right now. A lot of those on cash. Some of those are financing. There's just a lot of big money coming in, which is great. And it's part of that seasonality. So if you're thinking about selling, you always want to tee it up, right, when everyone's coming in, buying, and you see money moving. Second piece here we always look at is how many properties over 100,000. Sorry, how many properties over 500,000. And this last 7 days, there was 102 properties over 500,000. Last week's show, there was 115, so down slightly. But if you look at the over 1 million, last week there's only 14, this week over 16. So a lot of big money coming in, which is great news. We have seen inventory continue to creep up really every single week for the last the entire year. So right now for resale homes in Horry County, there's 1,150. Last week's show, I don't have down there, but if you go back 2 weeks ago, it was 1,055. And so it's 100 more properties since then. You're slowly seeing it happen, which is good for both home buyers and also home sellers because inventory is still super tight. That's what's been keeping prices low as well. So really quick, going into the quick review for prices for anybody that missed last week's show. Like I mentioned, single family resale homes are up 20.8%. Prices, median price up 8.5%. From last year at $376,250. It is down month versus month. So if you go back to March, it was $394,700, a new record here on the Grand Strand. And then in April, it dropped to $376,250. There's all kinds of different ways that price is always a lagging indicator. So my opinion, you'll see that bounce back up this month, but also there's different dynamics based on the micro market area in terms of where they're actually closing from. Like, for example, average sale price dropped 6.5% from the same month last year. So this year is $460,497. But if you go back to last April, last year, it was $492,000. So it's down, and it hit a peak last year in November at $515,000. So down a little bit. If you look at it overall in like a 3-month rolling average, prices are still up. They're up 5.2%. If you look at a 6-month rolling average, price is still up 8.5%. And so, for example, if you bought a house 6 months ago, up 8.5%. I was on the Gator Morning Show this morning with my great friend Adam Dellinger there, and we sold him a house in November. We were talking about prices, and they still have a lot more equity because they locked in and a great buy and a great property back 6 months ago. Overall, the rolling 12-month average price is up 7.3%. So it's still steady, right? Even though we had one of the worst markets in decades last year, prices are still up. And why is that? Well, that's because inventory has been so low after the 2008 crisis. Builders just didn't build between 2008 2013. They haven't really kept up with population growth since then. And so because of that, we have a massive problem in terms of inventory shortage. Now you add on top of that the amount of hedge funds that are buying properties across the country off market. A lot of the new builds are building what they call BTR, build to rent. And so what's happening is just not a lot of inventory out there, and there's a lot more people than there is houses available. And so that's what's really protecting price overall. And so good news for home sellers, obviously. Inventory's crept up a little bit. Right now, we're at 3.7 months of inventory. Last month, we're at 3.6. And so that's still a super seller's market. Anything less than 6 months of inventory is what we call a seller's market. We're almost half of that before. We're creeping up to that 4, which is still the seller has a massive advantage. So especially you're talking about seasonality, even the inventory is slowly creeping up, it's still very, very good for home sellers in residential homes. Condo market, we just swapped to a buyer's market. I'll talk about that here in a second, but I want to talk about the key number. And this is the number one reason why houses aren't selling right now. We mentioned almost 50%. I track this in my office continually. We track how many properties are listed in the last 6 months, how many sold last 6 months, how many get continued on, how many come off the market. And you're really in the high 40s, 48, 49% actually don't get sold a lot of times, which a lot of people don't realize that. And so if you look, the number one problem right now, and this is software, they track our entire MLS. It's the same software that every agent uses to book a showing. So if they book a showing on your house, they have to log it through this. It protects the seller, protects everyone, but it has great data. So the showings per listing on average last month for every single listing in the MLS was down 11.5% year over year, but it was 4.6 average showings per listing. The problem is the average amount of showings it takes to get a contract is actually up 2.3%, and it's 13.5. And so if you do the math on that, the average listing gets 4.6 showings, but the amount of showings it takes to get a contract is 13.5. And so that's what I really want to talk about in a few minutes about the number one reason properties aren't selling is just they're not getting the traffic they need. And so that's why when the market is super hot, you could list with any old agent, right? Find the cheapest one, brand new person, your friend or the housewife who, just does that part-time, whatever it is. We see all of that. They could put some cell phone photos, get it sold, because back then the market was a frenzy and the market was doing all the heavy lifting. Now that's not necessarily the case, right? A lot of buyers have pumped the brakes. People are locked in at 2 and 3% interest rates. And so there's less buyers out there, which means there's less exposure and it's not as natural. And so you want to make sure you have someone who has an actual marketing budget to differentiate, because there's inventory that's sitting there stagnant. How do you differentiate and separate yours from everyone else? And that, thankfully, is what we're very, very good at, what I specialize in. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. This number one reason, it's all mathematics. We all talk about that in my office all the time, that math is a path, right? All you got to do is reverse engineer what numbers and metrics do I need to move to get the result I need. And for right now, that's showings per listing. How do I get more people into this property to see it, to be able to help get them, the offer they need and the offer they desire? And so that's one thing we use all the time in our office to help. We'll talk about that in a few minutes towards the end of the show. I wanted to get to condos because condos have really been taking a beating this year, and it comes to a lot of different reasons. One of the biggest ones has been insurance issues. Lots of insurance issues, both in the special assessment and the HOA increases, right? Where for everyone, my insurance more than doubled on my personal house, but also these big policies with these HOAs have gone up significantly, and they've had to do assessments. You'll see 20, 30 condos in one building go on the market. And so it kind of increased inventory like crazy, but HOAs have gone up. Some buildings have had trouble getting financing even because of age of roof and things like that. So it's gotten very, very tricky in the condo market right now. We're very, very good at getting those sold because we can differentiate, because obviously a condo is a little more harder to differentiate than a house is, right? If you have two houses on the same street, they have different exteriors, they look different floor plans, but a lot of condos, same building, there's not a whole lot different there except the decor and how it's marketed. And so that's why it's so important to make sure you have a great marketer. Look at sales price. It's still done very, very good. But even though closed sales last month were down 17.4%, it's been trending down really long-term for a while. So if you go last year overall to, let's say you go to April 2023, there's 524 condos sold. This year, only 433. Sales price is still doing well. Average sale price up 5.6% at $285,000. The overall median price up 7.5%. That's a new record for condos, which is great, at $258,000. The major problem in condos right now is supply, and that is how many condos are there for sale. And there is this overall formula that's been used in the business forever. It's, hey, how many condos in the market based on the current run rate? So if there was not a single condo listed at the current sales rate, how long would it take to go through every single one of those? It's 6.1 months. We finally crossed that threshold. We've been watching this for really the past couple of years slowly go up. It crossed that threshold. The inventory is up 154% from where it was the same month last year. And the last time that we had that much inventory overall goes back to, we'll go back to 6.1 months was, last time we were 6 months was April 2020. But if you go to the last time, it was really much above that. You're looking really going back to 6.2, 2017. So you're looking at June 2017 was really the last time we hit this level of inventory overall. And so that's just something to think about. From looking at that same exact problem for condos, guess what? The average condo right now, showings are down 42.6% from the same month last year. So if you listed your condo this year versus last year, you're getting 42% less showings on average than they were before. And the average condo right now is getting 2.7 showings. The problem is the average amount of showings it takes to get an offer is 9.3. That's down 19.1%, which is good. But the overall thing there, 2.7 showings on average, but it takes 9.3. So you need 3 times the amount of showings to get an offer than most condos are getting. That's why the agent you choose matters more than anything. That's why the marketing dollars they spend matters more than anything. And people just need to realize that when you're talking about what strategies going forward. And so that's what we'll talk about here at the end of the show. One thing driving this market has been interest rates. Last week's show, it was pretty hot, 7.37. We had some great news. We had a great 5-day streak this past week, and we had the lowest rates we've had in a month, which is awesome as of today. A 30-year fixed rate right now, 7.15%. We're still in the sevens for a 30-year fix, which is not where I'd like to be, but I'll take it right now. A 15-year fix, 6.63%. A 30-year jumbo loan is 7.39%, a 30-year FHA loan in the sixes, which is great, 6.61%, and a 30-year VA loan, 6.62%. So rates are still doing pretty good. They're timing it perfect. I'll take it right now coming to the summer market. So we'll take a quick break, right back in a sec with our hot buyers alert and success stories. I'm about done. All right, time, huh? About a time.
Just pause that because there's like 2 minutes left.
All
I
right.
didn't know if you just wanted to come back. I mean,
Yeah, let's just come back.
Play the commercial.
We'll skip that then.
I can just play the music and cue you back in.
Perfect. Yeah. There's Welcome back to Blake Sloan Real Estate Show. 2 minutes left, so I want to get back to this really quick on hot buyers alert. One thing we always do is put our money where our mouth is, and we outspend the average agent 100 to 1 from a marketing standpoint. Our marketing budget's over $70,000 a month. Just some basic stuff with buyers from all across the globe. Right now, active home buyers we have on our website with username, password account, 76,173 active home buyers, 76,000. So if you have a home to sell, we have buyers that are already in waiting, ready for that. And so really quick success story. I want to give a shout out. Erica and Rhonda had a house there selling Carolina Forest so they could move back up north, be close to grandchildren. They listed with a friend and it ruined the friendship. The friend did absolutely nothing. It sat on the market for 6 months, only had 2 showings. They were very, very frustrated, almost gave up. An amazing radio listener had them reach out to us in our guaranteed sale program. I came in, identified the problem, which is marketing, designed a custom plan, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, virtual walkthrough. It drove massive traffic, had 6 showings in the first week, put it under contract. And so I got time for one more. Last one. Steve had a rental property in Myrtle Beach, was tired of dealing with the renters and wanted to cash out top of the market. Renters didn't take care of the price. He didn't want to have to redo and fix it up again for someone else to destroy it. Thankfully, he saw one of our billboards on Highway 17, decided to give us a call. We showed him how we had hundreds of buyers looking for properties exactly like his. I designed a custom plan, launched our global marketing blitz, professional photos, drove massive traffic, had 2 offers the first week. He accepted a higher offer above asking price, maximum equity. Reach out, call us 843-808-SOLD. See you next week.